You're welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibe. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has issued certificates of return to senators and members-elect during the week. Now, a total of 110 senators-elect were given certificates of return, while 326 members-elect have also been given these certificates, and they will form the 10th National Assembly, which will be inaugurated in June 2023. Now, let's take a look at the ceremony in Abuja. Senators-elect and their supporters converged on the International Conference Center in Abuja as Independent National Electoral Commission INEC presents certificates of return to the federal lawmakers-elect. INEC announced the procedure for the event, after which senators from each of the senatorial districts stepped forward to receive their certificates of return. The 10th Senate currently draws its membership from 7 political parties, namely the APC with 53 seats, PDP with 33 seats, Labour Party with 7 seats, NNPP with 2, SDP with 2, and YPP with 1 seat. It's a much bigger crowd the following day at the same venue as members-elect of the House of Representatives receive their certificates of return from INEC. Having won hotly contested elections in their constituencies, these lawmakers are thrilled to be here, surrounded by family and a throng of supporters. The 10th National Assembly has already taken shape, as INEC prepares to conduct supplementary elections to fill up the remaining seats in both chambers. It is obvious that the 10th Assembly will be politically diverse. So far, both chambers will be made up of 8 political parties, namely APC, PDP, LP, APGA, SDP, YPP, NNPP, and ADC. The APC leads in both chambers with 57 seats in the Senate and 160 in the House of Representatives. Of the 426 seats declared so far, only 15 are women, 12 in the House of Representatives, and 3 in the Senate. The 9th Assembly had 7 female senators and 11 female members of the House of Representatives. The youngest lawmaker-elect is a member of the House of Representatives at 27 years, while 70 years is the oldest, shared by 3 senators-elect. Beyond the diversity of the 10th Assembly, the high turnover recorded is unprecedented. 62 out of the 101 senators and 222 out of the 326 members of the House will be making their first appearance in the National Assembly as federal lawmakers. As it stands, 284 out of the 427 elected federal lawmakers are first-timers. Amidst concerns about the impact this would have on the business of lawmaking, the new lawmakers appear prepared to improve on the lapses of a 9th National Assembly.
I don't think the influx or the new intake, because some of them do not have legislative experience, it will affect the performances of the 10th Assembly. No, I don't think so. Since they are here and they are ready to learn, they will follow up the process, and they are also going to be part of the process. And I'm sure that we are going to have a robust 10th Assembly.
I know this is a bigger stage, but I think no one has the monopoly of knowledge. Anywhere you find yourself, you can key into the system.
Considering the fact that averagely Nigerians are very intelligent people, I expect us to have a very diverse and interesting 10th Assembly.
I've started politics since 1999 when I finished school. So I have been in the system for a long period of time. I was a local government chairman, so this is not a surprise for me.
Considering the political diversity in the 10th National Assembly, which is expected to be inaugurated in June 2023, selecting principal officers may turn out to be the most difficult selection process ever faced by a National Assembly in the country's history. The 10th Assembly has a huge task before it. They are coming on board at a time in Nigeria where the country is grappling with huge economic challenges plagued by revenue shortages, increasing debt profile, uncertainty in the petroleum sector as evidenced by the persistent fuel queues, particularly in the Federal Capital Territory, which has made life extremely difficult for Nigerians. Now, we spoke to some of these lawmakers-elect to glean from them the issues they will be given attention to in the 10th Assembly.
The Senate and the entire National Assembly should focus on all the problems facing this country today. We have to use the lawmaking powers that we have to help to address the needs of the Nigerian people. We have to make our legislative work people-oriented. In other words, any step we shall take, or any law we shall make, will be aimed at solving a problem or two problems. The country is bedeviled with multifaceted problems, and it is the parliament that will be on the side of the Nigerian people. More importantly, the National Assembly should be able to provide the much needed oversight function over the executive arm of government. Because this is the area we have tended to fail in the past, where National Assembly members will come and be struggling to become the president's loyalists. We don't have to be loyal to anybody, we have to be loyal to the Nigerian people and to our constitution. So it is important that everybody who has been elected, no matter your platform, should now be thinking about what to do to salvage the country. When the president is not doing anything right, the National Assembly will be the first to intervene before the people, because this is the only way we can make progress.
As a senator-elect, I have my focus, my aspirations, and my wishes, and so are the other 108. But I believe that we will all be united by our desire to ensure that we represent our senatorial districts very, very well. And that is to say that we come up with the legislative interventions that will improve the lives of Nigerians, provide better security environment, improve on the economy, rejuvenate the infrastructural base that we actually need, even though this administration has done quite a lot in that respect. So I believe that even though we'll be coming from 7 to 8 different political platforms, but we'll be united by the desire by all of us to ensure that we change lives for the better for Nigerians.
I'll focus on law and order, I'll focus on the economy and security. We need to reform the courts. There are many issues about the courts and the long delays in litigations, and so there are many things that needs to be done with the judiciary that I'll focus on. The economy, one thing that I know that has to be done is to do with borrowing, lending. We can't expect the economy to grow when people are unable to borrow, what they can afford to repay back. We can't continue allowing banks to unilaterally impose interest rates of 15% or 20%. We're going to peg it. Government must step in and peg it for the interest of the people. You can't, 1% or 2% is good enough. They can make enough profit from it. So the economy has to be, looked into passionately and speedily.
Part of the biggest challenge we have as a people is what I would describe as capital flight, in all ramifications. When I hear, for instance, the amount of billions in dollars that are used to import wigs, for instance, it's scary. This doesn't add any value to the economy, and the way I'm coming from is that until we begin to domesticate a number of things that we do, I've just used that as a typical example. In construction, we need to domesticate. We will make mistake, we'll correct mistake. Rome was not built in a day. But this whole idea of bringing everything wholesale from abroad is part of what have destroyed our economy. And part of what I'm going to be very strong on is what I can call local content in all ramifications. And of course, I don't need to re-emphasize the fact that the local government today is not functioning because the autonomy of the local government has been eroded. And we need to also plead with our governors, go into the National Assembly to see how we can effect legislation to give seats to the local government. All the crises we have in our country basically is because to a large extent, people are not feeling government at the grassroots. And it's indeed nearly impossible for us to get it right at the level of the presidency or even at the state. But if we can empower the local government, I think something positive will happen in the polity. Those are some of the things I'm looking at.
I'm going to give them the best because all they need is the best and nothing but the best. First of all, definitely their voice will be heard. I promise them from time to time we'll be doing what they call town hall meeting so that I will know what is their needs from time to time. In every 3 months, I'll go back and ask them what do you want us to discuss in the floor of the house. Definitely, I won't disappoint them. Their voice will be heard. When there's an emergency, definitely I will go back and tell them because this democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people. So I'm not going to run my private this democracy as if it's my private one. It's for the people.
Nigerians are yearning for a new phase and a new dimension of leadership to feel the dividends of democracy. And that's why the 10th Assembly is having new, almost 70 to 80% of new members. And so that's to tell you that the building of capacity of members to be able to understand the legislative duties is very key. And to understanding the heartbeat of Nigerians, because if we don't key our legislation to what the Nigerians truly want, then you should be able to know that, which means that even the 11th Assembly will be worse than the 10th Assembly. So our agenda for the 10th Assembly should be community-based, should be that which will have direct connection with the common man, with the voters, with our constituents. That's very key in terms of bills, in terms of constitutional amendment, in terms of looking at how our budget is into, and especially even in terms of how everything should not remain at the center, by looking at how is the proper way to restructure Nigeria to have every zone to feel that, look, we are being fairly treated of. So those are the key things that the 10th Assembly should be able to focus on, looking at how the elections came out. The elections, people spoke, and clearly you can see that people are tired of the usual norms. People want something new.
Well, the 10th Assembly is just been formed. It's very diverse. The number of political parties that have won elections into the 10th Assembly. So I believe you're going to get the quality of what Nigeria is about, unity in diversity. But of course, I have not met with each and every one of the members, so I will not be able to comment on their capacity in terms of intellectuality. However, the turnover rate is a bit high, so generally legislation actually comes with experience, and you will expect much more robust arguments or debates when you have much more returning members. But well, considering the fact that averagely Nigerians are very intelligent people, I expect us to have a very diverse and interesting 10th Assembly.
They should expect that I will continue to bring the dividends of democracy to my fatherland. In terms of healthcare, I have done so much. I have built primary healthcare centers in my community, and education-wise, a lot of teenage children are on my scholarship. About 5,000 teenage children are benefiting from my scholarship trust fund. And in terms of infrastructural development, I have constructed some rural roads, and I am doing so much for my people. Stomach infrastructure is not left out as well, and they are very much happy with me. That's the reason for my re-election.
So they will expect more of that?
Of course, yes. I will continue to do more. All I promise, I will redeem by God's grace.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. A group called the Parliamentary Advocacy Network is making a case for a free and independent 10th Assembly. They insist that competence, federal character and other considerations must play a role in the selection of principal officers in the 10th Assembly. So we discuss these issues with the National Publicity Secretary of the group, Ms. Nkem Lafia.
Immediately the legislature says set to choose its principal officers, its leadership, presiding officers, you see a lot of interference from the executive. Nobody is denying the executive a mindset, but a situation where they try to, press it down the throat of members of the legislature, or maybe parties become quite overbearing and say, this is who we want, without that freedom of letting members who already know themselves, even from just public knowledge, they know who can take care of the House or the Senate, as it were. And to that extent, we have seen the performance of the 9th Assembly. We also saw the performance of the 8th Assembly, especially the 8th Assembly, how such overbearing influence ended up bringing leaders that were never fathomed by the political parties. And in judging what that particular assembly was able to achieve, you and I know that that particular 8th Assembly was ranked very high in terms of service delivery, in terms of the number of laws, in terms of how much activities that we were able to see as part of our oversight functions, and even appropriations. The Dogara House was, if you ask me, it scored very well. So we were merely seeking to say, look, for anybody who will come up as a presiding officer, or even deputy, or even members of the principal officers, let the House or the Senate decide. And in deciding that, we're also thinking that we should set agenda for the new members. That in deciding this, already you have a president-elect, you have a vice president-elect. These are the two people that are already known. You must take care of the diversity of the nation, including the plurality of religions. All of those fault lines, all of those things that border on our sensitivity as a people must be considered in trying to choose others. The language is quite simple.
We are speaking about the 8th Assembly, because I had asked on the day the certificates of return were given to the lawmakers, I'd asked, so the leadership question, should it be the political parties choosing, as we've seen before, or should it be lawmakers themselves choosing? And they were saying there has to be a balance between what the political party, the candidates, and lawmakers themselves.
No, it's a two-way thing. Do not forget that all of these members, or members-elect, or senators-elect, as it were, have been elected on the platform of every of the political parties that brought them to power. So whatever they're going to be doing, most times, as in all democracies, are going to be guided by their political parties. But this is not always so. We have seen situations in this country, despite what the political party says, like the Dogara House. If you were there in the 8th Assembly, you would understand the fact that the political party, APC, actually had the present President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawa, and the present Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, as his candidates for both speakership and the Senate presidency. But because that beyond what the party says, those who constitute these two houses have the liberty to express their personal opinions, to sift realities from the utopian, to judge the composition of what has been as against what ought to be. So in that particular milieu, they were able to come forward with something they thought should be better for Nigeria. I'll give you an example. A situation had arisen where the president, General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, comes from the Northwest. And the vice president, Osinbajo, comes from the Southwest. All of a sudden, what the House of Representatives was told to do in that particular instant case was to elect Femi Gbajabiamila as its speaker. And again, there's something that happens which I think on one hand it's good for the National Assembly, on the other hand is something that ought to be looked into. It is the same CNA, clerk to the National Assembly, who organizes the election for the principal officers of the Senate, after which he goes into the other chamber to organize for the House of Representatives. But somehow in this instant case, they now saw that the Senate had brought up Bukola Saraki, another Yoruba man now from the North Central Zone, Kwara State. And by the time the CNA was done, he now came into, I was there, so I can tell exactly what happened. He now came into the House of Representatives chambers to organize the same election. So for a very lengthy number of hours, the election couldn't start because there was still horse trading on the floor of the House among people of the same political parties. What was the crux of the matter? The issue was, we have agreed that we will elect Femi Gbajabiamila. Our leader, Tinubu, has said we should elect Femi Gbajabiamila. The president has told us to elect Femi Gbajabiamila. But common sense does not favor this particular arrangement. And they said, how can we allow a man from Southwest to be vice president? I will come elect the speaker from the same Southwest. And the Senate president is a Yoruba man. No matter where he comes from, we cannot allow the two houses to be headed by two Yoruba men. That was what caused it. So some members of the party decided that they were going to vote. Although at the end of the day, the sum total of what happened was just a difference of 7 votes.
So when you're talking about independence, because I know the independence is not just about the composition of the leadership, it's also independence in their actions, in their thoughts, in their legislative activities. We know one of the things that have, dogged the Ninth Assembly was, the perception of they not being entirely independent, which was arguable, And, so when you're looking about the independence of the 10th Assembly, what would you want to see in this regard?
Like we said in our statement, that's quite simple. We want to see a House of Representatives that stands alone. We want to see a Senate that stands alone.
When you say stands alone, what do you mean?
Okay, let me explain. Framers of our democratic process, in their wisdom, thought that there ought to be 3 arms to a particular government: the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. And in its activities, the legislature is supposed to be some kind of a check, acting as a check against these 2 other arms of government. And that is why one of the functions of the legislature, if you remember, is being able to checkmate what happens around the executive, even around itself. The judiciary and order, they make laws for the good governance of the country. They have what they call oversight. They make appropriations too, determining how monies ought to be allocated to components and subcomponents of governmental activities. So if the legislature is not independent-minded, we're not saying controversial, we're not saying antagonistic to the executive. That is not the connotation of that independence. But where it comes, we want to see a legislature that is always at the side of the people. The independence of the legislature makes it side with the people. The independence of the legislature makes it a people legislature. The independence of the legislature makes it a structure that is only there for the people and not for the government. Because the government alone, maybe the executive, if you tend to count the number of people that constitute the executive in real terms, there are just too few to run a country. Compared with maybe the 360 people and the 109 people, all of who constitute the National Assembly, you will know that power is reposed more in the legislature.
This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.